sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Oh, there I am. I'm hiding back there, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, nice to have you here. Lakey in the morning, and pleasure to have you here. Lakey is unleashed from the confines of corporate radio, and I'm pleasured, pleased, and I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I hope you feel the exact same about me. It is, what is it? See, let me look it up here. It is the Tuesday, the 8th day of July, year of our Lord 2025. Do I say Tuesday weird? I was told one time that I say Tuesday very weird, and I don't think I say Tuesday weird at all. Some people say Tuesday, but it's Tuesday, so I guess that's what it is. All right, good to have you here. Got a lot of conversation to get into. I'm going to continue to talk about the tragedy down in Texas, and also it disturbs me. I've said this for years on the radio, and I say this again to you today, that one of the worst things that ever happened in America is a 24-hour news cycle, because what happens in a 24-hour news cycle is that journalists just start yapping and flapping their jaws, and they don't really think about the meaning of what they're saying, and they bring up questions that I think are irrelevant. I want to talk about the news coverage of this Kerrville tragedy. Some on the libtarded left have already decided that they're going to politicize it, and somehow it must be Donald Trump. But media people out there, like tabloid journalists, just trying to see if we can have what I would consider like grief porn. If we can go get someone crying and show a heartbroken parent, or show some tragic photo of a dormitory that this is the last place a little girl was sleeping. I don't think that's necessary, and I don't think it adds to the story. The death toll goes up and up and up. Bodies are still missing, and media are making jackasses of themselves, and Democrats and liberals are continuing to prove who they are, and that's evil type people in the hearts, and it's not good. I'll talk more about that. What else? The news coverage, I want to talk about that. We talk about the reconciliation bill, the big, beautiful bill. And I said one of the redeeming qualities that I heard that kind of got me saying, okay, let's vote for it, is that there's going to be another reconciliation bill. This is the first bite of the apple, is what I said last week. Well, guess what? Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, said there's going to be at least 2 more reconciliation bills coming our way. So that's good news. We'll dive into that, and we'll take another bite at the apple. You're not going to get everything in one fell swoop, but you just keep swinging for the fences, and eventually you may get a double here and a double here and a single there. But eventually somebody's going to get enough people on base, you're going to have an RBI. That is the only time in my life I've ever used a baseball analogy, because I don't even like baseball. But you're welcome. I feel so powerful here now that I've used an athletic commentating analogy. Dennis on the YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. How are you? Good morning, Jimmy. I'm in the motherland today by Muleshoe, Texas. Hello, Muleshoe, Texas. How's everybody in Muleshoe? By the way, I as a Texan. And oh, by the way, shout out to the people of Texas this morning. Special place in my heart. Here from the People's Republic of Colorado, firmly ensconced by the dictatorial rule of Jared Polis, our feckless and yet narcissistic and Marxist governor. Here we are, pretends to be libertarian, but here we are in Colorado. I'm watching this news story, and I want to help all of you sound more intelligent than what you probably might sound if you don't have my help. There's a shooting. Remember the ICE facility? Somebody showed up and they started shooting ICE officers and injuring them in Texas, and that's because the libtards out there tell you that they're Nazis, so people think they're saving America. They say Donald Trump is Hitler, and therefore they queue up all the people that think they're saving the world from Hitler, right? All of these things that happen. The liberals use words as their dog whistles to get their dogs to act violently, and yet they say, well, I never called for violence. Well, you called someone Hitler. You called them Nazis. And so therefore, anybody who's at least familiar is that people who fight Hitler or fight the Nazis go down as heroes. And so you use your cowardly, uneducated masses that have blue hair and a degree in underwater basket weaving, live in their parents' basement. You invoke them with your dog whistles as high-ranking politicians to do the dirty work as your hit squad that you don't have the courage to do, but you're very happy that they take literal pot shots and try to kill people. And that's what happened in Texas. Well, let me give you a point of order. The ambush at the ICE facility in Texas, I keep hearing people say it's Alvarado, like avocado, and you would absolutely be incorrect. In Texas, that is Alvarado, Texas. I just want to throw that out there. If I hear any of you that listen to this program refer to it as Alvarado, I heard the Fox News people earlier this morning. One of the first things I heard about 5:30 Mountain Time this morning, I had the news on in the background. And I hear this, they keep saying, well, down in Alvarado, Alvarado's just outside of Fort Worth. I'm like, is anybody there capable of telling them it's called Alvarado? Listen, there's different cities that we pronounce differently in different states. For instance, in Kentucky, there's a place called Louisville, and you got to go Louisville. And we'd say Louisville. In Colorado, the same spelling is called Louisville, but in Kentucky, it's called Louisville. You just got to figure Louisville. And in Texas, you have a Louisville, but it's spelled with an E, L-E-W. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there for all of you that aren't from Texas. I'm from the motherland. I don't have the benefit of living there now. I'm in the high-tax state and the high cost of living communist state of Colorado right now. But I'm telling you, it's pronounced Alvarado, Texas. So stop it. Somebody call Fox News. And even the guy that's Lawrence or whoever, he does that Fox and Friends morning show that's kind of, a little bit of news and a lot of recipes or little recipes. I don't know. They should do more recipes. Anyway, it's recipes. Anyway, he's even called, I think he even called it Alvarado. It's called Alvarado, Texas. Anybody from Texas in Texas knows that you pronounce it Alvarado, Texas. So again, I'm exercising your ignorance and at least sound like you know what you're talking about if you're going to talk about the motherland and the great state of Texas. All right, I will talk about that coming up on the program. I have a question. Anybody want to know what happened to the Jeffrey Epstein list? A couple of weeks ago, back February, March, remember Pam Bondi says it's on her desk and she's going to release it tomorrow. And then it didn't get released and she says, well, they didn't send me all the files. I thought it was, evidently Pam Bondi doesn't know what's on her desk. Evidently, Pam Bondi might want to clean her desk off and get a grip on it. She was told it's on her desk. And then if you remember the next morning, she says, well, they're shipping in from New York, and I've told them they better be on my desk by 6 a.m. So, God, they sent her something from New York, right, 6 a.m., and it was on her desk. And then remember that scene, and I have the photo. I'll show it to you tomorrow. I don't have it right here. It's all these, quote, influencers that showed up there, and they walked out of the press briefing room with stacks of stuff like they're going to break the news story. We bypassed the mainstream media. The White House, the Trump White House was bragging that, look, we gave it to these bloggers and influencers, and they walked out with things that look like yellow pages, right? Anybody remember that thing? Anybody remember the yellow pages? They all walked out of there, and they walked out of there, and you never heard from those influencers again. I mean, I don't think they were off or anything. I don't think they got the Hillary Clinton treatment that I know of, but they did disappear. Well, now all of a sudden, all the showboating, all the dog and pony show, all the stuff that they've been doing, we now find out, they come out yesterday and say, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. No evidence otherwise, and there is no real Epstein list. Why have you been telling us there's an Epstein list? And I want to illustrate absurdity. And this is the absurdity because I feel like this is what we're getting right now. I feel like we got Pam Bondi going, what list? And she's flashing the blue light in your eye. I feel like this is what we have. And I like Pam Bondi a lot, but I just want to, this is what I feel like is happening right now in America. What list? What list? Anybody feel that way right now? And we're all going, well, you yourself said there was a list. You said it was on your desk, and then you said they didn't give you all the information. So what the hell? Why? Don't make me look at the blue light, please. I know there's a list or something. Because, listen, they say, now, notice what they said. I want to illustrate absurdity here, and then we're going to go back and talk more about Texas and some other topics with Chris Burgard coming up here in just a moment. But I feel like we got Pam Bondi trying to give us the Men in Black treatment and say nothing. There's nothing to see here. So then they say, oh, by the way, Epstein killed himself. Let me ask you a question. And I think this sums it up pretty well. If there was no list and there's no evidence, all the evidence is gone, there's no list, there's no anything, You mean Epstein killed himself? He was about to be found not guilty because there's evidently no evidence. This is a tweet that went out from a handle there. The old man is here. I can't believe Epstein killed himself right before he was about to be acquitted due to a complete lack of evidence. There's no list. There's no evidence. There's nothing. And so why would Epstein kill himself right before he was to be evidently acquitted because there's no list against him? Is it any of this making sense to anybody? I mean, we can put all the caveat of I like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, fine. But is that what you're trying to make us believe? I feel like you can have this photo here with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. No, nothing to see here. There's no list. There's no list. Well, I go back to the previous. If there's no list, why did Epstein kill himself right before he was obviously going to be acquitted? Because there was a lack of evidence. Anybody figure this one out? Let me show you another one here, and this kind of captivates everything and encapsulates it right here. You ready for this? In other news, Ghislaine Maxwell becomes the first person to ever be convicted of trafficking children. To no one. Ghislaine Maxwell sits her little butt in a jail cell today because I guess she was charged with trafficking. Is that something along that line? Well, if she was trafficked, she had to have a destination. If she was trafficking them, she had to have a destination. Where were the destinations? Who was she trafficking to? Oh, that we don't know. There's no list. Oh, so there's no evidence. And yet she was convicted of trafficking children to nobody because there's no evidence she trafficked to anybody because we have no one. If anybody would like to explain to me what may be happening in the hollow halls of the swamp and the deep bowels of the justice system, please explain to me. And again, it all becomes a little bit more suspicious, if you will, when you hear that Pam Bondi is a couple of months ago was saying, I've got the list on my desk, and then she didn't have it on her desk. She was waiting for the list to arrive on her desk from New York, and she gave them a deadline of when it had to arrive, and then they went silent. But however, they went silent, but they had this spectacle at the White House where they gave all these bloggers and influencers and podcasters big old stacks of papers, and it looked like yellow pages, and said, that's the Epstein files. And evidently there's nothing to it. There was a blank pages. I don't know. If you can explain it to me, I feel like it's an old Lucy Ricardo episode. Lucy, you have splaining to do. Pamela, you have splaining to do. Somebody make them explain it. But I don't think you're going to have any explanation. Let me give you one more thought on this, and we'll come back and switch gears. But feel free. All the platforms are open. Rumble out there. Haven't heard from you Rumblers out there in a long time. If you're watching on the Lakey Unleashed channel on Rumble, maybe you're watching in real time. If you're watching in real time, when you comment on the Rumbles, it pops up right here into the studio, and we see it. Even the Twitter feed, the X feed, Jimmy Lakey, is out there, and a lot of you share it from there. It's throughout the morning, so feel free to start sharing that out there on all the platforms you're on. Even the Twitter feeds out there. When you comment, they pop here right into my studio. Of course, we're on all the Facebook feeds out there. A lot of them, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Also, the Media Equalizer, Red Wave America. That one is out there, so we can get to all of those feeds, and I'd love to have your thoughts on that. But let me give you one more perspective here, because what we're being told now is that there's no Epstein list. There's nothing to see here. And again, Pam Bondi, you have some splaining to do. You had it on your desk. Then you didn't have it on your desk because they didn't send you all the files. You gave a deadline. They had to have it there by morning. Caroline Leavitt and you in the White House held a press conference in which bloggers walked out of this meeting with stacks of stuff that were supposedly related to Jeffrey Epstein. And now you say there's no list. So let's go through this right here. We find out, let's go through this is a short list. And I got this from a website called Doge Official. It's a guy that posts Doge stuff. So 2020 election problems that we have, there's no arrest. Nobody gets arrested. There's nothing to see here. Don't talk about it. You must be a conspiracy theorist. COVID. We know that lies were perpetrated on America, crimes against humanity, in my opinion, but lies under oath, doctor, all these stuff, there's no arrest. COVID. Butler, Pennsylvania, we're almost 1 year away from almost at the 1 year anniversary, and we're still told that this pimple-faced skinny kid that cleaned bedpans at a nursing home, defied all of the nation, Secret Service, and took a pot shot at President Trump, almost killed him within a millimeter of his life. Hey, but there's no arrest, nothing. No one knew anything. He was a total lone actor. Well, what about the van that you said that was parked nearby? What about the missing person that's still missing that was early on named as a possible? Nothing to see here. There's no arrest at Butler. Was there any arrest after the Benghazi crap? And was there any kind of accountability after Benghazi? No. We found out that the January the 6th nonsense was a lot of hoax and the shenanigans of Nancy Pelosi and big fat Liz Cheney from Wyoming. All these people, no arrest, no accountability. We have all these scandals that go on. Doge, we find out there's embezzlement, there's waste, fraud, and abuse. We were told that people were going to be perp walked and people were going to be arrested for violations of law when it came to dispersing of funds. All these mystery nonprofits have made millions and billions of dollars to the USAID, and nobody's been prosecuted that we know of. Russian collusion. Russia. We know that there were lies told under oath. We know that former national security people and FBI directors were all involved in this. No one's been held accountable. There's no arrest. You have the Ukraine impeachment. Donald Trump basically had a perfect phone call, and Nancy Pelosi and her Botox self decided to impeach him over Ukraine, and now nobody's ever been held accountable for that. And now you have evidently Epstein, and there's no arrest, no anything. Not forget conviction. There's just been no arrest. All these things that are perpetrated on you and I by the deep state, and yet nobody seems to, it's just nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. And again, I'll point it out again, it's illustrating the absurdity with the meme on the screen. In other news, Ghislaine Maxwell has become the first person to ever be convicted of trafficking children to nowhere. And yet, help me reconcile that if they want us to believe that Ghislaine Maxwell was a child trafficker, then you have to know that there was somewhere she was trafficking them to, and who was she trafficking them to? And if they were receiving the trafficked assets, why have those people not been charged? If Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking children for sexual purpose to dirty old men and women, why have the people that received the assets from Ghislaine Maxwell and what was Jeffrey Epstein charged with, why have they not been charged? Don't know. And help us understand again, I'll put this up and I'll switch gears here. Epstein killed himself right before he was about to be acquitted because evidently there's a complete lack of evidence. All right, we'll come back and talk about that here in just a moment. Nice to have all of you here on the program. Am I seeing that there's a comment on my wardrobe this morning in the chat room? It seems like I saw something. Yeah, Stacy says, breaking news. Texas says you were not wearing blue. Nice color on screen. Enjoyed the show yesterday. This is a blue shirt. This is a blue shirt. I don't know what your camera's doing. It's a bluish shirt. Bluish. It's a baby blue, a light blue, very soft. Arloa says, I noticed the non-blue shirt as well. It may be the lighting in here, but this is a blue shirt. I own only blue shirts, my friends. I'm telling you, I own only blue shirts. I take that back. I own mostly blue shirts. This is a blue shirt. I apologize if you think it's not. It is a shade of blue. I think with the lighting, it may turn out a little bit more greenish, but it's a blue. It's a blue. I promise you, Arloa. I promise you, Stacy, it's a blue. You know what? There's not a damn man in this audience right now that's noticing what shirt I have on. But all the ladies out there are chit-chatting about the color of my shirt. How you like my eyes? It looks tan. Well, it looks tan. She says it looks like a tan color, a khaki color. It's blue. Can't ever make them happy, can you? You finally get rid of... I always wear blue, and then they say, it's black. No, it's blue. All right, good to have all of you here. Let's go to my first guest of the morning. Chris Burgard is waiting patiently for me to shut my pie hole so he can jump into the conversation. Let me remind you who Chris is, if I may. Chris is part of, and he's works with some of the great folks at His Glory Ministries. And he's also, I believe, and we'll talk a little bit more about Chris Burgard. He's a lot more in-depth than that. But Chris, let me bring you in here. If I'm not mistaken, you are on the ground in Texas, friend. How are you? Chris, good morning. I've lost Chris here. I see his chronos there, but I don't see him. Well, we'll see if we can get Chris Burgard is there, and we're trying to get him on the horn. We can't hear him, but camera's off. I don't know if he's... Some people go with their camera off. Some people don't like being seen that. I'm getting a message from his publicist. I don't know. Said Chris Burgard cannot wait. Well, he's not waiting. We're 2 minutes past the interview. All right, good to have. Okay, Chris has bailed on us. So we're not going to do Chris. So we won't give a promo to His Glory Ministries, I guess. Anyway, they're on the ground in Texas. Not exactly sure what that was all about, but oh well. Anyway, good to have all of you here on the program. Welcome to the show. Anybody want to explain to me what's happening with the Maxwell files? Anybody have any, the Epstein files? Anybody have a clue? Is there anybody that has a clue on the Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, Chris Burgard's back. There he is. Chris Burgard, how are you?
Jimmy, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I hear you're on the ground in Texas, near Kerrville.
Yes, sir. We're down here in Kerrville. I'm here with John Taylor. He's the co-lead for Heroes for Humanity, a bunch of special forces and former servicemen volunteering down here too. They've been instrumental in doing some body recovery. We've been down here a couple of days, and it's sad but inspiring down here. The disaster, the damage, the families will break your heart, but man, to see the way Texas has come together and the way volunteers have come in here, it's pretty inspiring.
So you guys are working, sadly, on the body recovery. We heard yesterday the story of two twins that were holding hands but deceased. They had miles downstream from the Camp Mystic facility there. And there's just all sorts of these tragedies. Is there a coordinating agency that kind of you're working with so you know who's checking where? Or is it kind of free-for-all? Is there headquarters?
I'll let John answer that.
Sir, I apologize. There's a lot of equipment and helicopters going on overhead. I need you to say that one more time, sir.
I was asking, how do you know where you're searching? Or is everybody working together? Is everybody independently? Is there a head department that you go this way, you go this way? How's everybody heading out in the search mission?
So right now, like how it's all going on right now is just like it's been designated to different sectors, ran by a lot of the local agencies, fire department personnel, and then with DPS, whatever, like what it seems like is like they're leading the charge. I will honestly say whatever it's like, because this is probably my fourth or fifth major disaster that I've actually worked directly in. This is probably like just how efficiently everything's being ran out here, how quickly everything's moving through. I'd have to say it's like being like the work is being done, recovery is being made. And it's right now, it's just in terms of just like getting things reported up, like we're trying to like notify families and everything before we even send anything up. So if it sounds like it's like just like there's random numbers just like coming out like all throughout the time and all that, it's because like nobody wants to say anything until the family is properly notified.
Yeah, Jimmy, you've got families sitting on the banks of the river crying and praying, hoping for news of their loved ones. It's pretty sensitive. But to echo in on what John said here, compared to North Carolina, where we spoke, last year, Texas is really on this. There's a lot of help down here.
In your search today, and I guess I've heard the Lieutenant Governor of Texas and other people say that they're not going to stop till every body has been recovered. That could take days. I mean, you got so much debris build up along the way. Is there any estimate? Because is there any definition of how many people are still missing?
That sounds like something Dan Patrick would say. When Dan says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. He's a go-to guy. I've known him for almost 20 years. And this could take weeks. It could take a month. And I don't even want to comment on. Let's just hope we find everybody.
Do they have a definitive list yet, Chris or John, about how many people are actually still missing? I mean, we know that the people at the camp are registered, but there might have been people camping on a long weekend, just in tents, just out enjoying it. Is there any? Are there still people calling in saying my friend has not come home? I think he was in the area.
I can't give any specific numbers on anything like that right now at this time. As like with these kind of situations, what will happen is you're going to have the initial shockwave value that's going to like coming through. You're going to have the initial like, hey, here's the areas that were hit, here's what happened, here's who was in those areas. Then it's the follow through of just like, hey, here's like all these like just like individual residential neighborhoods, the individuals just like camping on the creek, and then it'll turn into like, hey, I haven't heard from my family in a few days, and then it just starts getting reported from there. But in terms of like actual numbers, I cannot give that at this time, sir.
What do you go ahead, Chris.
You're talking 50 miles of the river. There's concentrated areas where the camps were. We're speaking to you right now of what used to be an RV park. It's gone. How many people were in each RV? How many people were in each vehicle? This is a very fluid situation.
Chris, John, I know you're working His Glory. You have His Glory TV and Heroes for Humanity. What's needed most right now? People in Colorado, people listening to this all over the nation. What do you need most right now on the ground in Texas?
I can't speak on behalf of all of Texas. I know that there's going to be a lot of rebuilding work that's going to be wanting to come in going forward. Right now, it's like you see, like right now, just trust your sources for the appropriate donation sites. There's plenty of like nonprofit organizations that are down here trying to get the funds and equipment to the right people in the right places. Make sure before people are going out and just blindly donating to some of these fundraisers and all that, make sure they're properly vetted. I know there's like a big need or whatever, like out here is like cadaver dogs. Like people don't know it or whatever, but like these working dogs, it's very easy for them to get overlooked, and there's a lot of space that still needs to be like heavily checked and looked through. Like my team or whatever, like we're currently being held up because like we're waiting for dogs to be coming in from like out of state right now to come like help us out or whatever, so we can keep pushing the fight. So it's we need your prayers. Make your donations to to the appropriate sources. If you have working dogs, bring your working dogs.
Yeah, one of the places, Jimmy, that you can reach out. We'll have more information for your audience in the next day or two, but you can reach out at the Hunt, Texas Volunteer Fire Department, Fire Chief Lee. You can get a hold of them. They're taking donations. They're right on the river. Hunt was hit real hard, so those funds will go right to the people that need it most right there. But we'll get more info for that in the coming days. Just check the websites for hisglory.me and check Heroes for Humanity. Is it .org or .com? .org.
Yeah, one more quick question. So you guys are about to go. You've stopped you and held you up from some of your recovery efforts. What do those look like? Are you guys just walking the bank of the river, or step by step? What will you be doing when we disconnect here?
All right. So what we did the other day is like we pulled up satellite imagery of just like what this area looked like. So judging by and then we'd make our call on like where we begin our searches based off of where the bends in the rivers would be, because that's where a lot of like most debris would be collecting up at that point. The areas with the most trees, that's going to be the area with most debris is going to be collected at that point. When you're talking about entire camps, RVs getting stacked up or getting like caught up in like the debris like that, that's the areas where you need to do the majority of your looking at. We were flying drones overhead along the river, just help pick out like better spots, see where the best crossing points are. We were we had people going through with like cadaver dogs in front of us, just so that way we could try to pick up a scent on something. From there, we were pushing. From there, like whenever we got a hit, we'd notify the appropriate personnel. We'd come in and they would come in and they'd make the call on just like how we're going to excavate what they need to do. In a couple cases, like some people were still actively submerged, and in which cases, a couple times, a diver was called to come in or whatever and like pull them out. Me being one of those divers in one of those situations specifically.
Wow. Chris, John, I appreciate you. Hisglory.me, heroesforhumanity.org. Guys, I'm going to let you get back to work. Thanks for hopping on today.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, I appreciate you.
Take care.
God bless, Chris. Talk to you soon. I appreciate you. That was I couldn't see the message I was getting. I couldn't see the message I was getting from the publicist, but I was running 2 minutes behind schedule, and the publicist messaged me and says, "He can't wait. There's rescuing bodies right now." And I'm like, I wasn't late. I was 2 minutes. That's very on time for me. All right, good to have you here. God bless Chris and John out searching literally on the ground in Kerrville, Texas. All right, let's switch gears again. We'll switch gears back to this wonderful time of a Tuesday that we call it Carno Tuesday. And because we call it Carno Tuesday, we decided we should have someone with the surname of Carno on the program. It's kind of like when I got hired by the iHeart Kingdom before they kicked me to the curb after a decade of my loyal service to their underpaid dysfunction. I still loyally serve because I'm an idiot, but no, I did because of all of you, the fans out there. I saw an ad in the paper that said wanted host of the show called The Jimmy Lakey Show, and I said, hell, my name is Jimmy Lakey. It's almost like it's made to be. And so we created Carno Tuesday and said, let's have somebody named Carno on the show. So ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the namesake kind of for for Carno Tuesday, Carno Tuesday. Miss Laura Carno, how are you, ma'am?
Good. I remember way back in the day when buying websites was very new. And a friend said, well, do you want to buy lauracarno.com? And I said, well, of course I do. Who else is going to want it? So
I bought all of mine many years ago. One of the first things I did for my son, I bought all of the domains that may be appropriate for him. Later on in life, he was 2 years old, and I'm buying websites with his name on it. And, we'll see what happens with him one day. And have you ever done this, Laura? And maybe it's just me. I still do this, not as bad as I used to, but I still go through and buy website domain names and hold on to them because I have some great ass business idea. And normally 3-4 years later, after a lot of resubscribing, I'm like, okay, it can go away.
Yes. I have also been a serial purchaser of web domains that most of which never went anywhere.
You know what I did? I did put one up for sale on the GoDaddies or something. You listed for sale. It was giving me a pretty big amount that it was worth. And I said, sure, let's sell it. It was a domain. I have to look up which one it was because I own so many of them. I just like 2-3 months ago, $4,000 for this domain name I had. So it works. It was investment. I probably had paid $4,000 of hosting fees and registration fees for it through the years, but it was a good idea when I had it. So, all right, Laura Carno, good to have you here on the show. Help me understand what happened to the Epstein files, ma'am. I don't understand. Jeffrey Epstein looks like he was going to be found innocent. There's no evidence here, and then he kills himself. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking all of the right questions. If there was no list, what's Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for? And if there's no list, who was it that was abusing all of those underage women, girls? If there was no list, why was Pam Bondi and JD Vance and all these people saying we're going to get after the list? Nobody believes them. They need to create some transparency here. And I was reading something, honestly, just the headline this morning, that there's some missing time. They released the video of Epstein's cell, but there's some missing time or something like that. So
there's a minute missing. Say it's technical glitch. A whole minute's missing. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, and it just after the last 4 years. People aren't believing anything that government says, whether it's a Republican government or a Democrat government. But there were people. So when Pam Bondi was nominated, I was dubious because as a Second Amendment supporter, a staunch Second Amendment supporter, I was very concerned about some of her past comments and decisions and that sort of thing. And but MAGA was behind her because the president, wouldn't nominate somebody who wasn't going to support his agenda. And now those same people are saying, wait a second, Pam Bondi needs to be fired. So easy come, easy go.
Well, as Pam Bondi, she got herself into this. Remember, February, March, she's on Fox News and she says, I've had the files on my desk and I'm going to release them. Then the next night, we didn't get anything. She goes back on and says, well, I looked at the files and they weren't all there. So I've given them until like 6 a.m. from New York to get the files to me. And then she and Caroline Leavitt in the White House held some big press conference. If you remember, everybody walked out with these big books like they had the files and they were going to and we never heard from any of those bloggers again. And we hadn't heard them at the beginning. Now we still haven't heard of them. And now what were they handing out of the White House in the yellow page thickness binders? What was in those?
I don't know, binders full of women or something. I don't know. What's in binders these days? I don't know. But yeah, no, I'd forgotten about the blogger, podcaster, influencer, whatever they were called at the time. I forgot about them until you mentioned it earlier this morning. Yeah, what the heck happened to those folks? I hope somebody in the Twitterverse or something goes after them and says, hey, what did you end up finding on that?
It's the most bizarre thing, especially since, Donald Trump's getting credit for promises made, promises kept. It seems like Donald Trump would want to say, hey, I said we may release these Epstein files. I need an answer. Why were you telling people? What was that on your desk that day? Simple question. You said you had the files on your desk. What was on your desk? Why can't you release what was on your desk? I mean, maybe there's, again, I'm not saying that there's a list of, I am Jeffrey Epstein and I am blackmailing these people, but there's got to be more than this guy rotting in prison committing suicide when there's evidently no, something just doesn't add up, Laura Carno.
Right. Yeah. And it's the absence of information that causes people to go to conspiracy theories. And you would think that the federal government would learn that by now, that just get the information out there. Now, what the left is saying is that it's because Donald Trump or somebody very close to him is on the list. And um, I feel like if Donald Trump was on the list, Pam Bondi wouldn't have been saying it's on my desk and we're going to release it. Is somebody close to Donald Trump on the list? I really feel like Trump would just say, release the list. It doesn't matter. We've got other things to do, and this is a distraction.
You know, we know there's flight logs for the people that rode on the planes with him, and not everybody that rode on an airplane or bummed a ride from who they made it thought was a fat cat. Not everybody was going off on the Lolita Express to Epstein Island, the same way that not everyone that came across with P. Diddy was rubbing themselves with baby oil and doing nasty things. So, you know, just because they're on the flight list or whatever, that's irrelevant. But they got to know something. Again, Ghislaine Maxwell, she was trafficking children. They have to have evidence that she was trafficking them to somewhere. Where was she trafficking them to? And who? I mean, that in itself makes no sense. Forget Jeffrey, but let's go to Ghislaine Maxwell rotting in jail for trafficking to no one.
Right. And if I'm her rotting in jail and seeing this news today, I'd be doing an appeal. Okay, well, if there's nothing against him, there's nothing against me, because all of her stuff was, or a lot of her stuff was conspiracy stuff, and you can't have a conspiracy without other people. So.
Yeah.
But I'm not an attorney, for the record.
I play well on the radio sometimes, the streamcast and the podcast, but they've never given me a TV gig as a lawyer, but I could pretend if you want me to. It makes no sense, and I don't know where it's all going to point out, because, again, I'm not afraid to criticize, but Pam Bondi brought a lot of this criticism on herself, because Pam Bondi was the one that says she had the list on her desk. Caroline Levitt came out yesterday and said, well, she meant she had the entirety of the case on her desk. Well, okay, well, what's the entirety of the case? What was the case against Epstein? Let us know what was the case. Who was he trafficking to? I mean, it doesn't. She had folders on the entirety of the case. Well, the entirety of the case is what we want to know about, because in the entirety of the case, you're going to know who were they shipping kids to. It's right. It scratches your head, and I feel like in 3.5 years, they're going to give blanket pardons out to anybody who might have been on that list. You can't. It's scary. It's really scary that the deep state seems to be that swampy.
Yeah, and which British royal was it? Was it Prince Andrew that was alleged to be on that list? And there's some pictures of him with underage girls, and the royal family has ostracized him for some unnamed reason. I think there was a named reason here. It's because he was doing things he shouldn't have been doing with underage girls.
Yeah, but the royal family may know something we don't know. They didn't come out and say there's no evidence. He was just in a photo. No, they know there's something going on, and they've ostracized. But evidently, our American politicians, who you would have to assume it's American politicians and/or donors that would have been on that list, suddenly again, Pam Bondi has said, just like that, what list? It's like the Men in Black episode. What list? Nothing to see there. Nothing at all to see there. All right, we'll come back, talk more about that throughout the course of the morning. Lauren, let's talk about this. You asked me a question on an email this morning. Did I see the dinner with Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House last night? I did not see. I saw kind of the opening comments where they all gathered. They had their place there, but there was no food on the table. And I saw Benjamin Netanyahu reach across the table and show, I've written a letter of recommendation for you to get the Nobel Prize. About that time, I turned it off and said, I've had enough news of the day. What did I miss?
Yeah, so here's what I'd like to say about this. So this president uses, is it any opportunity or most opportunities to talk to the press? So last night there was this dinner, Secretary of State was there, Secretary of Defense was there, a number of other people, including, as you say, Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife. And they were sitting down to a dinner. The press conference went on so long, it was until I think it was 8 Eastern time. But man, I'd be starving by now because their plates were sitting there empty. But the press conference went on for, I don't know, about 45 minutes. I can't turn these things off, Jimmy, because it's so interesting to me how not only is Donald Trump willing to do these, he'll take every question. He doesn't have a prepared list of the people that he is allowed to take questions from. He has no list of what the questions are going to be. He has no idea what's going to happen. And he's not afraid of that because he's the president of the United States in the way we think of the president, that they're actually in charge of all of the things the executive office is supposed to be in charge of, and knows a whole lot of stuff. So it was just really fascinating to continue to watch these things. There were a couple of questions he handed over to Benjamin Netanyahu, including one question was that this New York candidate Mamdani says that if Benjamin Netanyahu sets foot in New York City, he'll have him arrested. What do you think of this, Mr. Prime Minister? And Netanyahu said, I'll be going with the president, so we'll see how that turns out. So just some super candid moments. And I always like watching, kind of the bigger picture of it. And so we've got, the president sitting here and Secretary of State here, SecDef over here. And both Rubio and Hegseth are both very intent on watching the president. And they're not being the over nodders, they're not being the over smilers, but sort of watching their faces on what is their life like? These two dudes who are new to a presidential cabinet, and certainly Hegseth new to government, they know a whole bunch of stuff. And so it was just interesting watching their faces. It's a fascinating, as a political observer, just fascinating TV.
And watch it. It's not an insult to Rubio or Hegseth, but it's almost like they sit there as if this is as if they're some of Trump's sons, and Dad's just going to talk, and Daddy's home, says the NATO chief, and they just sit there, and we're going to get to eat as soon as Dad's done. But until Dad's done talking to the press, we ain't getting to our main course or an appetizer. Nothing. Where they're praying, Daddy, would you be quiet? We're hungry over here.
Right. Yeah. And in Rubio's case, and I think Rubio is a front runner for president. In Rubio's case, my sense is he is soaking it all in. What would I be saying if I were sitting in that seat? In Hegseth's case, boy, I bet he's getting more of an education than he ever thought he would get working in the cabinet. And he also, differently, seemed to be just soaking everything in. The guy sitting next to Hegseth, and I don't remember his name.
That's Ratliff, John Ratliff, the National Security.
Thank you. He just seemed to be looking all over the place and kind of giggling at points.
He's intelligence. He's seen if the room's bugged. He's looking for cameras and things.
Okay. this would make sense, Jimmy.
Here's what I did notice this. And by the way, Laura's asking here. Laura's in her house. I know where you're at. You're not in your house. She sees you're not in the motorhome right now.
Yeah, this is the shop. So the shop has a big pantry cabinet, has some gym equipment. I'm backwards here, a little refrigerator, a printer. I am sitting at my office table, which used to be a patio table at the old house. But this this shop certainly has allowed us to expand the square footage that we can exist in. So yeah, this is my office.
I saw the external photo on your social media of your trailer out there in the middle, waiting for your home to be built, and it looks like you have. I knew it. I knew you're gonna get some tomatoes out there next to you. You brought your planter boxes and you set up a little temporary garden.
Yeah, and folks can see that on Facebook. As opposed to last year, probably, I don't know, somewhere between 80 and 100 tomato plants. I only have 13 here, but Bill brought over my some planter boxes, including all the soil that was in them, which is, all my worms and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that's I finally settled down enough where I can start posting some pictures of what's going on around the build site and the garden and all that stuff. So
let me remind you, if you're just listening later in the day, because by the end of the day, thousands of people will listen by the end of the week to this show. And we want you to know that that's the voice of Laura Carno, fastercolorado.org. I take for granted many of you watching it, but lots and lots and lots of you listen to the podcast later in the day. So Laura Carno, Faster Colorado. We'll give the website here in just a minute, but Carno, C-A-R-N-O, if you want to look that up. Now, Laura, I noticed something back to that dinner with Netanyahu. I didn't watch this as long as you did, but I kept seeing, I could see a lady behind John Ratliff standing against the wall in the doorway. And I was like, is that the chief of staff? Is that Susie? I didn't know who it was. And then they zoomed out. It was Monica Crowley, and she's an assistant secretary of state. And now she's going to be kind of heading up the protocols for the 250th anniversary. And you know what was running through my mind when I saw Monica sitting back there? Is a lady is in the room. One of you guys get up and give her your seat. I was just like, let Monica sit down. She's a lady.
That's awesome. Yeah, my sense is that as the chief protocol officer, and I also looked up what her job title is now. I met her many, many years ago on a bus tour she was doing in Colorado Springs, but just seemingly a lovely human being that didn't let all of her fame go to her head. But anyway, I also looked up what her current position was. My sense is that she was standing there in the doorway because she needed to see everybody and see what the media was doing and all that stuff. And my sense is that she had words with Ratcliffe afterward. Tell him to pay attention, be a good boy.
Pay attention, straighten up. Protocol. Or what if it's going to be like the? I'm guessing the chief protocol officer of the United States is different than like the chief protocol officer for the royal family. I'm guessing it's different levels of protocol.
Yeah, I would presume that there are certain countries where if you do something that is totally normal here in the United States, it would be deemed an offense. And her department would need to know 100% of all of those. And if you've got people from different countries, it's not just how we are interacting with them, but helping them to understand how to interact with one another without being insulting culturally.
I didn't see what the menu was last night, but I'm guessing it was delightful. Meatloaf, maybe. I don't know what it was. We got some Midwest casserole for you, Mr. Prime Minister. It's a church potluck. The ladies from the local church brought it over. All right, Laura, the Democrats seem to be drifting at sea, trying to, with no rudder on their boat. Jasmine Crockett, maybe she's the leader. Maybe AOC's the leader. Gavin Newsom out there. A lot of people, I think if you look at the betting lines, Gavin Newsom is odds down favorite to win the Democrat nomination. You sent me over a poll about jazz hands Timmy Waltz, Tampon Tim.
Yeah. So most polls, if the Democrat primary were held today, who would you vote for? Most Democrats are saying Kamala Harris. It makes sense. She was the vice president. She ran for president. They've seen a lot of her and liked her somehow. But if she is otherwise engaged, like being the governor of California, which, there are lots of people saying that's what's going to be next for her, then who do you like? So we have Gavin Newsom, we have Pete Buttigieg, who likes choo-choo trains, as you always say, and Tim Walz are kind of tied at 15% each. And the article that I read about this was like, bring it on. Let's get jazz hands Tim Walz, who was calling JD Vance weird. JD Vance, a normal dude that, is the American dream and, married and children and religious and all that stuff. Tim thinks that's weird. Bring it on, because we saw enough of him during the presidential election to know people think he's the weird one, and people don't want a weird dude in the White House or a drunken lady. But that's going to be just fun to watch.
Tim Waltz saying J.D. Vance is weird. I believe it's him that has the wife that when they were burning down Minneapolis, opened up the windows of the governor's mansion so she could smell the beautiful smell of the burning tires. So that's a little weird there, Tampon Timmy. A little weird.
Yeah, maybe there's a burning tire perfume.
It should be.
Dab behind her ears.
Laura, it's a pleasure to have you here on the program. Indeed. Thank you very much. If folks want to learn more about fastercolorado.org, fastercolorado.org, where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to fastercolorado.org, see what we're up to. Last week, you told people to go there and throw a few bucks my way. And some folks did, saying that they heard me on the Jimmy Lakey show. So I really appreciate that. It really helps our rural schools who have so few students that they don't have budgets to get the proper training. So that allows us to offer them some discounted pricing because of the generosity of our donors. So we appreciate that. And this week I am writing an article about a task force I was on having to do with educator safety, not school shootings, but teachers being assaulted by students, like beat up by students on campus. The task force was very educational, and I'm writing a piece about that. We'll talk about that. It'll be published on Sunday, and we'll talk about that next week.
I have a question. I was trying to explain to somebody what you do, because you and I are talking about helping fundraising for Faster Colorado here real soon. Yeah, I was explaining to people what you do, and I said provides training and discounts or scholarship for school districts or schools that want to have their administrators and teachers armed on staff. And it's you're in the kind of a clandestine world, because you can't even tell me, your bestie here, which school districts have signed up, which schools. But can you give us an amount or a number? How many districts and or schools in Colorado have taken up the, let's say, benefited from the work of Faster Colorado? I know you can't give specifics, but is it widespread? Or we have pretty safe schools now here?
Yeah, I can characterize it for you in a couple of different ways. So Colorado has 178 school districts, and Faster Colorado, going into this training year, so I'll update my numbers at the end of the year, but going into this training year, we were in 41 of those 178 school districts. So not anything close to a majority, but you have to consider Denver Public School District, Boulder Public School District, Poudre School District. Those districts are never going to do this. You also have to look at some areas like Colorado Springs has, I don't know, half a dozen different school districts. So it is peppered throughout the state. The other thing, and mainly rural school districts. The other thing to know about Colorado is that charter schools, even if the big school district they sit in isn't interested in it, charter schools can make their own decisions. So about the people that we know, it's about 60% traditional school districts, mainly rural, and about 40% charter schools, and some religious schools thrown in there as well.
Yeah. All right, so everybody do it again. FasterColorado.org. Throw some money. Can you quantify what does a dollar do? What does $30 do? $100 do? I mean, a scholarship, it's thousands of dollars of training.
Yeah, so our level 1 training, which is it's not a beginner course by any stretch, but it's the first level of Faster that they go to go from not carrying to carrying, and that's a $1,250 course over 3 days. They shoot about 1,000 rounds of ammo. They do medical training. They do they use the police simulator. They are able to use simulator houses where they can work on clearing rooms in a simulated school building. So it's not just standing at a range and shooting against static paper targets. It's very, very complex, and all of our instructors are active duty law enforcement instructors and first responders, and they are just the cream of the crop on instructors. I had somebody ask me a couple weeks ago where I got my qualification to teach this class. I don't teach the classes. I do the program. I raise the money. I organize everything. I go talk to school board meetings, all that kind of stuff. And I saw a question about the new laws in Colorado. What the new laws in Colorado are doing doesn't make this illegal like they tried to do last year. But what it does is it makes it very difficult for especially rural school districts to get them new multi-day concealed carry permits. Everything is tougher for rural school districts all over the board, including these new laws. For more suburban school districts, it might not be as difficult for them to find the training to be able to get qualified to come to Faster. But they certainly, it makes it very much more expensive. And if time is money, it makes it more expensive there for them as well.
I love it. The Democrats all said the big, beautiful bill is going to hurt rural Americans and hospitals. Turns out the gun laws are hurting rural Colorado, and signed by Jared Polis, their commander-in-chief for their state of Colorado. Laura, FasterColorado.org. Everybody throw a couple of bucks. If 12 of you gave her $100, you'll almost cover an entire training for one day. Yeah. I'm pretty quick with math like that.
Yes, absolutely. And all of our rural school districts that we are able to offer some discounts to, they are very grateful to everybody who gives, $20, $100, $1,000. It all adds up.
FasterColorado.org. Everybody throw some money her way. I appreciate you, Laura. Talk to you very soon. FasterColorado.org. fastercolorado.org, fastercolorado.org. All right, good to have all of you here on the show. Various sundry topics going on today. The news of the day, of course, continues to be down in Texas. And I want to continue to talk about this. I was watching the news last night. And you know what? If my child, and God forbid any parent ever has to bury their child, or God forbid anybody ever find themselves in that situation where you sent your kids off to summer camp and the next time you see your kid is in a coffin. I can't imagine it. I can't, I don't even want to imagine it. But you know what? I'm watching the news media coverage last night. I know they have to fill time. Again, the worst thing that ever happened to America is 24-hour news cycle, because whether you're Fox or Newsmax, or whether you are whether you're Fox, Newsmax, CNN, and MSNBC, doesn't matter your political bent or paradigm of the news, you have to fill time. And I've just been amazed at, number one, the willingness of these families, which I don't understand. I'm thinking if my son or my child had ever been harmed in this way, and you come after me and knocking on my door wanting a statement or what have you, we're probably going to fisticuffs. And I just don't understand the obsession of wanting to watch it over and over and over again. The biographies of these little girls. I saw the Hunt family that owns the Kansas City Chiefs, their niece, an 8-year-old from the Dallas area. She was at the Mystic Camp. I mean, and there's other people that have less prominent family names perhaps, but the stories go on and on. But has anybody else just been baffled by the story? And I mean, it's captivating and it's heartbreaking. But now, they're still looking for bodies. We just had Chris Burgard on a moment ago, and he's literally out. They're out literally on a search mission right now, waiting for cadaver dogs to show up. They're out on the ground in Texas, and you have newscasters buying into the goofiness of the politicians, going, "What about sirens? Would sirens?" Somebody had on Newsmax the other day, which again, I think it's just. So much news just becomes offensive after a while. I don't watch it, my friend. Stop it. Turn off your damn television, read a book, go on a hike, and stop getting sucked into the nonstop 24-hour news cycle. It is unhealthy. It's the worst thing that ever happened to our political culture in America, Republicans and Democrats, and that's where the partisan politics really became evident, that Fox says we're going to program to this, and Newsmax is going to program to this, and MSNBC, and therefore you never know what the truth is. It's a bad thing, and if you're paying into it, to watch these 24-hour news channels on a regular basis, then you are also contributing to part of the problem. That's my theory. And I'm in the news, been in the news business and journalism and talk radio for a couple of decades now, but it's not good for your psyche. It's not good for America. But give me your thoughts here. I've been watching the debate last night. I think it was on Newsmax. Some host said, well, I have tornado signals out by my house, but when I'm inside, I can hear them. And when no one cares. At this point, no one gives a rat's ass whether we're going to have a discussion about sirens going off or whatever. There's a time for that. I think it was Charlie Hurd, God bless him. I like Charlie, filling in for Sean. He was filling in for somebody, Hannity or somebody last night, and then filling in for them. I think it was former Governor Rick Perry of Texas. Was that his name, Rick Perry? Yeah, Rick Perry. Yeah, Rick, it's some other land. He was talking to Governor Perry, and Perry said, now's not the time for the postmortem. He said, when I was the governor, we always, you dealt with a tragedy, and then you have weeks down the road that you're going to find out what can we do better next time. We can't prevent acts of nature. We can't prevent floods, but what could we have done that next time? And I remember the question last night, and the follow-up question Charlie Hurd said, so are you saying there are things that should be improved? And it's like Charlie didn't even hear what the former governor had said, is that it's not time for this postmortem right now. But because you have a 24-hour news cycle, people are doing analysis that they should not be doing when they should be supporting the people that are doing the rescuing right now, like Chris Burgard, and they should be just simply saying their prayers and praying for these families that are going through this hell, and for maybe some random miracle of a survivor out there, which is unfortunately highly unlikely. So again, get your priorities right. If you're in the media, now is not the time to be doing a post-mortem, if you will, on the evaluation of whether there should have been more cell phone coverage or whether there should have been more emergency alerts. And then the media going out irresponsibly and spreading the lies that spreading the lies that the National Weather Service was understaffed because of Doge. Actually, for the holiday weekend, they had more people there than normal. Did any of the news people that spread the first propaganda lie when they said they had sources that said they were understaffed, did any of them come back and apologize? And then they say this must be global warming. I remember, because I'm from Texas, and the summer camp that I went to was in much more East Texas, not Central Texas, but East Texas has a lot of these camps as well. There's every denomination known to man, and a lot of well, you go to the mountains of Colorado, you got YMCA camps, you got Young Life camps, you have denominational camps. So campgrounds in these places for kids and families to go to retreats, and a lot of them are religious based. And I'll never forget, and it came back to me. I had forgotten it, but as soon as I heard it, I said, I do remember that. I don't forget that. I was still in high school. This would have been in the 80s. I want to think they said 87. I was still a high school kid. And there was a summer camp bus in that same area. And I saw the photo of it. It was Seagoville, Texas, which is more East Texas. They had left East Texas to go to Central Texas down to the Guadalupe area for a summer camp. Well, see, the Baptist church there, and a flash flood came. And the flash flood came and washed the bus and killed a bunch of kids from that Baptist church, Seagoville, Texas. I remember that. Past Mesquite, Texas, Dallas, Mesquite, you get out towards that Seagoville area. So it's all these commentators wasting your time watching this, and some people are watching it. I know friends that can't get their freaking, I almost said a bad word there, freaking eyes off the news. And I'm like, man, don't you have something else to do with your life besides sit around and watch news? I mean, it's just not healthy. It's not a good space, because then the question has become on some of these networks, was it climate change? This flash flood it was not unordinary. This part of Texas is prone to flash floods because of the hilly nature and its proximity to the Gulf Coast, and it's at times not this epic, but it's known as I think it's called Flash Flood Alley, if I recall. It's prone to it, but again, we have to watch these news commentators pontificate and intellectually masturbate to some thought that this must be global warming out here. Global warming. It's not global warming, my friends. It's called an act of nature. They've had flash floods in that world. I remember in high school, a church bus going to summer camp got washed off the road, killed a whole bunch of teenagers. I remember it because they were all my age, because I was also in high school at the time. It's happened before. And let's not pretend that it hasn't, and it's happened, that area is flooded before. And yes, there will come a time later down the road that you're going to pontificate and elaborate on some things that you should change. And maybe here's what we could do next time, like a tsunami war. I don't know. Maybe who cares at this point? You ought to be praying for Texas and get your freaking face out from in front of the damn news and stop watching the news channels all the time and pretending that you're getting smarter. People are dead. They're trying to find the bodies. That's all you need to know. And you should be praying for those people that have lost their kids and are looking for their kids. And as Chris Burgard said, they're sitting on the side of the river praying for a miracle, and you've got your fat ass in front of a television. I feel better now. Get off your fat ass in front of the television, and instead of watching it, try to say, can I learn one more thing about this flood? No, you know all the damn thing you need to know about the flood. You've heard the whole thing about the flood. It's tragic. It's awful. And parents are sitting on the side of a bank on a river, as Chris Burgard said, sitting there waiting and hoping for the rescue crews to come back with some glimpse of their child. And we think we're helping by watching the news over and over again. You're not. You're not helping a damn bit. You haven't donated money. You sit your fat ass in front of a television and think you're getting smart about the flood. You don't need to know anything else about this flood right now. You should either be moving on about your life, contributing to society, or you should be contributing to these local organizations, or be praying for those people that are sitting on the side of the bank of the river, and get your fat ass out from in front of the television. I feel much better. It pisses me off so much that we have so many people that are so educated on so many news topics, and they know all the intricacies, and they'll say, Jimmy, did you see this in the Wall Street Journal? Jimmy, did you see this and this? Did you see this? I'm like, what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What did you do? I feel like I had to vent there a little bit. All right. I feel better. I think that was pretty good preaching, though. I think it was. I mean that sincerely. Turn off the news here, and remember those families that are on the side of the bank of the river, as Chris Burgard said, waiting. And if you haven't prayed for them today, then you're kind of useless when it comes to this situation, and you don't need to know anything else. Nothing else. Ray says, Jimmy, how do you really feel? The Rottweiler of the airwaves. Well, I get people sending me news stories throughout the day about the floods in Kerrville. They're awful. They're pitiful. But they're looking for bodies, and you've got news commentators talking about global warming. And you know why they even have the chance to talk about global warming? Because people in America watch the news network and give them ratings, and therefore they're still on the air. You've got people, even Newsmax last night, going off about whether you should have sirens there. Do we have a lack of sirens? Does it matter at this point? You've got a lack of children. You've got 20 kids buried somewhere under the mud. It's not the time to talk about the damn siren. Just because you have a coiffed hairdo and an Aquanet stylist that makes you look pretty on television doesn't mean that you have a freaking clue. You got to put fat, ugly guys like me on television, and then we have a freaking clue. These news commentators that all went to journalism school and all feel as if they have something to say. They only feel like they have something to say because they have time to fill and they have to stretch it out. And therefore they say stupid ass things. And they should really be ashamed of themselves for talking about sirens and global warming while parents are sitting on the side of the bank of a river hoping that their child is found alive. Plenty of time to talk about the other stuff. Now's not the time, but when you have a 24-hour news cycle, and the reason you have the 24-hour news cycle is because people sit and watch it. And what ends up happening, they end up watching, but not doing. You understand? They end up watching the news cycle, and they feel like they know a whole lot, but they didn't do a whole lot. And I believe what we're called to do is not to just know a whole lot, but we're called to do a whole lot. Are we doing anything? A lot of folks around America watching the news, getting smart about the Kerrville stuff, but you haven't done a damn thing about it. And so really, you're just kind of watching grief porn. Really, if you're sitting in front of the news watching the story about Kerrville and you haven't done a damn thing to ease the pain of the people that are hurting in Kerrville, are you addicted to news porn and grief porn? I think we have a problem with that. And the networks know it sells. The networks knows that if you can put a crying family on there and you can get everybody worked up into a tizzy about sirens and global warming, then they can fill up content and you feel smart and you've gotten part of the debate, but you didn't do anything to ease the pain. The pain is in the people in Kerrville, and you got to do something about that. Roger, good comment. I'm praying for the rescuers, first responders. They need all the help they can get with. They'll be dealing with horrific scenes. I think of Chris and John, who were on the program earlier, literally, they were waiting on cadaver dogs to go out ahead of them, and the cadaver dogs alert them as to where the next body is found. So I think they said a group of cadaver dogs yesterday found about 10. So that's what we're up against here. Anyway, I feel better. I got that off my spleen. Sorry, don't mean to be a downer, but I'm just trying to say, hey, if you're just watching the news for the sake of watching the news and you're not taking action based on the things you see on the news, whether it's politics or Kerrville, it doesn't matter. Then you're probably just addicted to grief porn. And porn can be addictive, whether it's news porn or grief porn or Republican porn or Democrat porn. Stop it. Be a doer, not just a seer. Thank you. I rest my case. Your Honor, back to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. I want to start real quick before we do the meme roulette. What about Sherry Cree? Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. There's a lot of things that go into buying and selling a house, and you need to have a plan for your long-term real estate plan. A lot of folks, you buy your first house, you didn't do it strategically, you just bought it. But by the time you start keeping going, if you play the game right, you do the game right, you do the steps right, that home is an ability to create generational wealth. It's also an opportunity for you to there's just that generational wealth. And Sherry approaches the homes not by, you're going to buy a home, let's go to the open houses, I'll tour you around and find all the MLS listings. Or if you're going to sell a home, put the sign in the yard, we got a great stagers, it's painted up pretty. Listen, all that's important. But it's the bigger picture that Sherry walks through it with you. And she wants to serve you. She wants to serve you and become your realtor for life. She wants to serve your dreams and your aspirations and help you use your real estate transaction to create that generational wealth. Maybe you're in your 40s and you're like, I don't know, but listen, play it right, do the right thing. Sherry approaches it from that. She approaches that one transaction as if we do this right, I'm going to get their business down the road again and again. And don't forget, if you're a first responder, you're one of those people out there that whether it's in Kerrville, Texas, or in the flash floods of Colorado, and you've ever had to go with cadaver dogs and you've searched, you're a rescue person, a first responder, listen, Sherry gives a discount on her services and her commissions to first responders, to veterans, those who serve their country, those who've put themselves face to face with hell so that you and I have better lives here. Sherry discounts their service for you and her service to you. And also, she'll give a portion of her proceeds, not just even discounted, she'll give a portion back to the charity of your choice. I want you to, if you're thinking about real estate, maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's next week, maybe it's next month, maybe you think you're a year out, but go ahead and put that strategy together and you owe it to yourself. Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. And as she said on the program last week, we'll try to get her on again next week, but as she said on the program last week, or maybe this week we can get her on, if she can't help your area, she doesn't know your area, she has a great referral service and she'll get you to the hands of the right person. So if you can trust her, and I think you can because I trust her, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, and she can give a referral service. But that I-25 corridor in Colorado is a great place to start. If you're in, let's say, Denver, Fort Collins, if you're in Greeley, if you're down in Aurora, if you're down in Parker, if you're down in the Highlands Ranch area, Lakewood, Littleton, maybe you're out in the eastern areas, maybe you're in the Firestone, Frederick area, maybe in Thornton, Northglenn, wherever you were at, I want you to remember Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, Longmont, Colorado. What are you waiting on? Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. And if she doesn't know that area, maybe you're a little further too far out of that I-25 corridor, she has a great referral service, but talk to her, homeswithsherry.com. Jim brings up a good point. Sirens in tornado country. How many people would have gone to their shelters instead of trying to get out to higher ground? You know, that's true. The tornadoes are not as prolific in the hill country of Texas, but how many of us get alerts on our phones? I've turned off the alerts on my phone because I got sick and tired of getting beeped out of a meeting or somewhere sitting out of the radio show, and I get these alerts for an Amber Alert. I'm 120 miles away, but I'm getting an Amber Alert for Pueblo, Colorado. I hate to say it, it doesn't matter. It's not doesn't pertain to me. They have so oversensitive. It's kind of like the car alarms, I think, anymore. If you hear in a parking garage, you hear a horn going, bah, 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 in the neighborhood, do you ever go out and say, stop? No, you don't. We ignore them. We ignore alarms because we have become overly alarmed. We ignore them. If you hear a car beeping in a parking lot, if you hear a car beeping in the neighborhood, you don't think about it. You don't stop. You don't think anybody's stealing it. Now, if your alerts go off on your phone, you look and go, okay, whatever. You don't care. The other day I was with a group of people and we were at a place where they had a couple of televisions up, and one of the places had like a tornado warning or flash flood warning for eastern Colorado where we were at. And it was reading. They said, we had to change the channel. There's nothing on that channel. And somebody said, that's an emergency alert. They didn't even know what it was. They were like, I thought it was golf. We got to put on the golf again. It's like, and it was like going through Washington County, Kit Carson County, flash flood, seek shelter, go to higher ground. No one cared. They were getting an alert and nobody even cared. So all this talk of these news anchors out there with their coiffed hair and their beehive hairdos and their Aquanet and their makeup people, stop it. And the reason they're successful is because people like you and I watch them, and you shouldn't be watching this crap. You should turn it off. And if there's people crying on the banks of a river and you sit in your ass in front of a television, it's not helping. You're not helping them a bit. You know, I'm just being real with you. All right. Appreciate all of you. But yeah, are there sirens? Are there tsunami warnings? Maybe, but is now the time to discuss it? I think now's the time to grieve with those on the sides of the river and help them think about their kids coming home. And that's all the focus is on right now. That's all the focus should be on. And protocols and politics, all that stuff comes later. But right now, it should be about grieving with those who grieve, mourning with those who mourn, giving a shoulder to those who cry. And that's it. That's all you need to be doing right now. Donate to the causes that you can and help these people out. All right, real quick. Tomorrow, I'm going to introduce a program to you. We're going to do Meme Roulette. Don't forget, Meme Roulette coming up. I'm going to introduce a program. I have a classroom at our school, Legacy Christian Academy, that is going to have 30 children. We're going to need 30 chairs and about 15 desks as we there's usually 2 kids at a desk in the 5th grade classroom. And we got to stock the classroom with new supplies. And I'm going to be asking for at least 30 of you to give a between $150 to $175 one-time gift. I'm going to announce that tomorrow. We're going to stock a classroom. Every year we add a classroom to our Legacy Christian Academy. This is a pivotal one. This is 5th grade. Now, next year we're screwed. We got to build an entire new building or we're in trouble. We got to work on that because that's 6th grade, and 6th grade is where they begin their kind of placement and national testing becomes real. And so if we don't have 6th grade, we're in trouble. I'm going to unveil the whole program to you, but I want you to start praying about it because I know a lot of you give domestic, a lot of you give foreign, a lot of you just give to where you feel the good Lord tells you to give, and I appreciate that as well. I want you to start contemplating in the next maybe 15, 20, 30 days. Are there 30 people on this audience, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on the listening to the podcast, that over a 30-day period you could give, let's say, $175 at one time, maybe you give more than that, but that's going to stock the classroom, buy the chair, buy the desk, and get all the supplies that new 5th grade class will need. So I'll be talking to you about that. We maybe call it even 200, but that's about the cost of that is about 175. And so I'm going to ask and hope and pray that about 30 of you out there across America over the next 15 days can come up with about that around that range of money for a one-time gift, and we're going to fill that 5th grade classroom because their classes begin in about a month back to school there in Rwanda, and we got to get that classroom done. So prepare your hearts for that. Also, I don't want you to forget here. Friday, September the 5th, is my 9th annual golf tournament. It benefits the charity aforementioned, Rivers Promise. It's a Colorado National Golf Club. If you're interested in sponsoring that golf event, we'd love to have you there as a sponsor, corporate sponsor. You can sponsor a hole, sponsor the meal, sponsor the breakfast, sponsor the bag, there's all sorts of ways to get involved, sponsor just a hole there. If you want to play, you can also play. And listen, you don't have to be a great golfer. Go to riverspromise.com/events, riverspromise.com/events. Friday, September the 5th. I will be there. Producer Chad will be there, and it's a hoot and a holler. And again, this is not a qualifier for the PGA. I promise you, this is not a qualifier for the PGA. This is more of a drinking event and a party event and a celebratory event where some golf breaks out. A couple of people hit a couple of balls. I will tell you that the best golfers have not won my tournament ever. The drunkest have. Just kidding. Matter of fact, for 8 years, the same guy has won the golf tournament. You know how he does it? He has a couple of decent golfers on his team, and then he buys string and mulligans and grenades. People say, well, that's not real golf. It's a golf tournament for charity. It's a fundraiser, and we put the fun in fundraising. Guess what we do? It is a hoot. And so, yeah, you can cheat your way to victory. And one guy has won this thing with his team 8 years in a row. And a lot of people talk some smack and say they're going to threaten and they're going to take it over. And they haven't done it. But listen, you don't have to buy a couple of mulligans if you want. You don't have to do any. But register riverspromise.com/events, or just go to riverspromise.com, tab over the top and give you the events page. We'd appreciate you being a part of that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the meme roulette portion of the program where we scour the globe, look north, south, east, and west, and we find the memes that we steal from other people, and we share them with you. Stolen memes. Ready? Let's do it. Cheap prop, cheap host, go. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Pop-up campers so you can experience the discomfort of a tent with all the hassle of an RV. You ever stayed in one of those things? I've never have. I've seen them. I'm not much of a camper. I know that shocks many of you that I'm not much of an outdoorsman or a camper. But at least what I think of those kind of things, if you do it in Colorado, a pop-up camper, you get the breeze and you can sleep very cool at night. But if you're doing that in Texas, dear Lord Jesus, in most places in Texas, very hot. You need no airflow. Anyway, pop-up campers. I don't have one, never been in one, but yeah, not much of a camper, but it's good advice. I'll avoid it. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Hey, there's Willie Jeff Clinton on the screen. That's that moment you realize you and Trump are the same age. And he has Melania, and you're married to Hillary. Yeah, that's the face Bill Clinton makes, whether he thinks about Melania and Donald Trump or not. That's the face he makes every day when he realizes he's married to Hillary Rodham Kinkles Clinton. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's back to the 4th of July. George Washington rather built there, isn't he? Freedom so good it should be illegal. Oh, wait, it almost was. Yeah, almost was. Not just with the British, about when Dr. Fauci took over our freedom, and Jared Polis and Gavin Newsom, they wanted freedom to be illegal also. Never forget it. They should never forget the ballot box. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. It's a great question. There's Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. Here's a question to contemplate. If white privilege exists, then why did Elizabeth Warren pretend to be an Indian, I should say? If there was white privilege, why didn't she just march in on her hind end and say, I'm a honky and I get the job, right? If white privilege was really a thing, then why did Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren pretend to be an Indian? Put that in your peace pipe and smoke it. Yeah. Round and round we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Cory Booker last week. Anybody remember this? Cory Booker. Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries just broke the record for the longest filibuster speech in the U.S. House. Over 8 hours and 33 minutes. Now, that was in 2025 last week. 2021, the filibuster is a racially tinged artifact of the Jim Crow era. We cannot let the filibuster stand in the way of progress. That's what old Hakeem Jeffries says in 2021. And 2025, he's filibustering with the best of them. Old Jim Crow Hakeem. Good to see you, Jim. I mean, Hakeem. Jim Crow Jeffries. Maybe that's his new name. Let's see if the milk machine? What the hell? The meme machine. Meme machine, round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Doctor sitting here, it says here that Trump hurt your feelings. Well, I'm writing you a prescription for 2 testicles. A lot of folks need those. A lot of prescriptions for testicles ought to be out there. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, with the thought of 2 testicles lingering in the forefront of your mind now, we are now going to wrap up the show and conclude it for the day. Again, thanks for being a part of the program. I do appreciate it. If you'd like to sponsor the show, support the show, be an advertiser on the show, we'd love to have your help. Producer Chad and I would love it. Advertise with us. info@jimmylakey.com. info@jimmylakey.com. Also, don't forget to go to all the podcast platforms. Go to the stream, the stream services such as the Apple. We're on Apple already. I think we're Apple Podcast, iHeart, Spotify, all the podcast platforms. Like us and subscribe, and that helps us to continue to grow this little program we call Lakey Unleashed. Again, by the end of the day, end of the week, thousands of people will be having earballs on this show. Not everybody watches it live. Some people will just continue to watch the stream on the news feeds we're on, and some people will go to the podcast platforms. But go and your favorite podcast platform, look for Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. That's me. And I'd love to have you be a part of that, followers on that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. If you'd like to donate to the charity, register for a golf tournament, sweepstakes, etc., it's all right there. And glad to have you here. Ray is on YouTube, gives us a real quick comment. How fast could they have gotten all the children together to evacuate the camps? People seem to forget the time that it takes. It was also the middle of the night. It was also there were kids that were evacuated. And the water rose so quickly that a lot of the kids in those cabins closer to the banks of the river just couldn't get through. That was the problem. The water rose so fast that it couldn't. And that's why the cabins closest to the river were the ones that seemingly had the loss of life at the Camp Mystic. But there's a lot of story, a lot of postmortem, a lot of review that should happen, but it's now's not the time. There's families sitting on the bank of the river crying, waiting for the kids to come home. All right, we got to go. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to all of you for being a part of the program. Tomorrow morning, good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. I shall be back here on this very show. It's called Lakey Unleashed. Go to the Streamcast, the podcast, Apple, Spotify, iTunes. I don't know, just name them. We're there. Podbean, I'm out there as well. Don't forget, follow me on Twitter or X. It's just my name, Jimmy Lakey. Look up Lakey Unleashed or Jimmy Lakey on Rumble. Look up the Jimmy Lakey channel on YouTube. That's another one. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. See you tomorrow morning. May God bless you. May God bless America. Jimmy Lakey, peace. I'm out of here.